The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council on Altheran Prime pulsed with nervous energy. Hundreds of species represented in the vast chamber fell silent as Marcus Hale, the Terran ambassador, approached the central podium. His face betrayed no emotion as he stood before the council representatives. 2 years had passed since the Zarnath attacks on the Terran colonies in Helios Reach, and the council's tepid investigation into these atrocities had yielded nothing but platitudes and empty promises. Humans withdraw, all diplomatic ties severed, effective immediately. 6 words. That was all Marcus Hale said before he turned and walked out of the Grand Assembly. The chamber erupted into chaos. Councillor Dreesen of the Chlorath species rushed after him, green scales flashing under the artificial lights. Warlord Krasik of the DL Confederacy roared for immediate sanctions against the Terrans. Archon Vela of the Sithar stood silent, her luminescent eyes tracking the retreating human with something resembling understanding. Marcus Hale strode through the majestic corridors of the Terran embassy, his diplomatic staff already enacting evacuation protocols. Through the panoramic windows of the embassy, he could see Council security vessels converging, their lights cutting through Altheran Prime's perpetual twilight. The peaceful veil that had maintained stability for centuries had been shattered in 6 words. "Sir, the fleet is standing by," said his aide, passing him a secure communication device. Marcus nodded, taking the device. "Admiral Kane, this is Ambassador Hale. Operation Iron Curtain is a go." On the other side of the communication, aboard the Terran flagship Titan, Admiral Victor Kane smiled grimly. "Acknowledged, Ambassador. Time to show the Council what happens when you abandon humanity to the wolves." In the private chambers of Chancellor Verac, the highest authority of the Galactic Council, an emergency meeting was already underway. The Alari leader's translucent skin pulsated with stress patterns as advisors and military commanders argued over the appropriate response. "This is nothing but a negotiation tactic," insisted Councillor Dreesen, the most moderate voice in the room. "The Terrans have grievances, yes, but they wouldn't dare act against the full might of the Council." Warlord Krasik slammed his armored fist on the table. "We should deploy the Theroni Combine to secure their embassy immediately. Show them what real power looks like." Chancellor Verac raised a delicate hand for silence. "The Terrans feel abandoned after the Zarnath attacks. Perhaps we should—" "Chancellor," interrupted a communications officer, bursting into the room without protocol. "We've lost contact with our fleets stationed in Helios Reach and the Orion sector. All Terran ships have gone into blackout protocol. Our quantum communication network can't penetrate their defenses." The room fell silent. The Iron Veil, long rumored to be a Terran defensive technology, had just become real. Every Council vessel's sensors and communications were now blind to Terran movements. "Impossible," whispered Warlord Kasich of the Veltroni, his metal-infused skin reflecting the dim light. "Our quantum comnet is unbreakable." "Apparently not," replied Archon Vela, speaking for the first time. "The Council abandoned them during the Zarnath massacre. Did you truly expect them to remain docile?" Vice Admiral Carla Ross stood on the bridge of the Terran stealth frigate Nemesis, hidden in the shadows of Helios Reach's asteroid belt. Her dark eyes focused on the tactical display, showing 8 Council scout vessels crossing into Terran space. "Theroni Combine vessels," her tactical officer reported. "Probably here to assess our defensive readiness." Ross nodded. "Let them come a little closer. Then drop the cloak and give them a demonstration of Terran hospitality." Minutes later, the Nemesis flickered into visibility, its advanced railguns and energy cannons already charged. The Council vessels barely had time to register the threat before high-energy beams sliced through their hulls. 90 seconds later, all 8 vessels were disabled or destroyed, drifting lifeless in the void. "Message sent," said Ross, as she ordered the Nemesis back into stealth mode. "Admiral Kane will be pleased." The news of the Helios Reach engagement reached Altheran Prime like a shockwave. Chancellor Virac convened an emergency session of the Grand Assembly, but the dignified proceedings quickly devolved into a shouting match between the peace faction and the Warhawks. "The Terrans have committed an act of war," bellowed Warlord Krasik. "We must respond with overwhelming force." "And what would that achieve?" countered Archon Vela. "More dead on both sides? We failed them at Helios Reach. Perhaps we should acknowledge that." The debate raged on until a pale communications officer approached Chancellor Virac and whispered something that made the Chancellor's translucent skin turn nearly white. "The Grand Assembly is now informed," Virac announced, his voice quavering, "that all Terran fleets have entered blackout protocol. We have lost tracking capabilities across all monitored sectors." The Assembly fell silent. Without communication or sensor data, coordinating any military response would be nearly impossible. The Terran Iron Veil had blinded the mighty Galactic Council. In the darkness of space near Tarsus Rift, a gargantuan council vessel moved silently toward its deployment zone. The planet Cracker, officially designated as a planetary reconstruction tool, but widely recognized as a weapon of mass destruction, represented the Council's most fearsome capability. Its massive gravitational disruption beam could literally tear a planet apart from the inside, starting with the core. Commander Lathis of the Veltroni supervised the final preparations with grim determination. Once deployed, the Cracker will be within range of the Terran homeworld in 5 days. He reported to Warlord Kasich via secure channel. "Excellent," the Warlord replied. "The humans will learn that their defiance has consequences." Neither of them noticed the 3 Terran warships, Titan, Resolute, and Nemesis, materializing from stealth just outside the planet Cracker's sensor range, on the bridge of the Titan. Admiral Kane studied the massive weapon with cold calculation. "All vessels, this is Admiral Kane. Operation Cerberus commences now. Target the Cracker's core and its escort vessels. No survivors." The Terran vessels surged forward, their advanced weapon systems unleashing a devastating barrage. High-energy beams from the Titan's main cannon sliced through the planet Cracker's outer hull, while railgun fire from the Resolute systematically disabled the escort vessels. The Nemesis, smallest but most agile of the 3, darted between the larger Council ships, firing precise shots at critical systems. Commander Lathis barely had time to sound the alarm before the Titan's main beam penetrated the planet Cracker's core containment field. The massive weapons power source overloaded, creating a chain reaction that tore the vessel apart from within. In moments, the Council's ultimate weapon and its entire escort fleet had been reduced to expanding debris fields. "Cerberus complete," reported Admiral Kane to Terran Command. "The planet Cracker has been neutralized. No Terran casualties." While the Council reeled from the destruction of the planet Cracker, a smaller, but equally critical operation was underway. Operation Starfall began with 6 Terran stealth shuttles approaching Altheran Prime's orbital infrastructure. Each carried a team of Cerberus operatives, elite Terran special forces, trained for zero-gravity combat and digital warfare. Their target, the Council Central Communications Nexus, the heart of the quantum communications network that coordinated all Council military and governmental functions. Team leader Commander Jackson guided his operatives through the station's maintenance tubes, bypassing security with advanced hacking tools. "Remember," he told his team, "minimal casualties. We want their systems, not their lives." The operatives deployed specialized disruptors at key junction points throughout the station. When activated simultaneously, the devices unleashed an electromagnetic pulse that fried every backup system and communications relay in the Nexus. For the next 6 hours, the Council leadership would be completely cut off from their forces across the galaxy. In those critical hours, Terran operations across Council space proceeded unchallenged. Operation Black Rain targeted the Tarnus Core, the central banking system of the Council. Rather than destroying it, Terran cyber warfare specialists infiltrated its networks and froze all Council financial transactions while leaving independent systems untouched. Within days, the economic impact was felt across Council space. Trade ground to a halt, resource shipments were diverted, and one by one, border powers that had long chafed under Council authority began to make their moves. The Karthus Free States were the first to announce their withdrawal from the Council, followed quickly by the Norse Unity and the Outer Rim Consortium. Each issued statements recognizing the Terran Confederation as a sovereign power and expressing interest in new alliances. In the halls of power on Altherin Prime, Archon Vela watched as the Council's authority crumbled. She had long warned that the Council's arrogance would be its undoing, but even she hadn't anticipated such a swift and comprehensive collapse. "We have no choice," she told Chancellor Virak in a private meeting. "We must negotiate with the Terrans before there is nothing left to save." Virak nodded wearily. "Arrange a meeting at Helios Reach. It seems appropriate." The negotiations at Helios Reach took place aboard a neutral vessel in orbit above the colony world that had suffered most from the Zarnath attacks. Marcus Hale and Admiral Kane represented the Terran Confederation, while Archon Vela led the Council delegation. The terms were non-negotiable. The Council would demilitarize, recognize the Terran Confederation as an equal sovereign power, and acknowledge the right of all worlds to self-determination. The once mighty Galactic Council would be reduced to an administrative body, facilitating trade and cultural exchange, but stripped of its military authority. "You've broken us," Vela acknowledged as she signed the agreement. "Was vengeance worth it?" Admiral Kane's face remained impassive. "This wasn't vengeance, Archon. It was justice, and security for a future where humans will never again be abandoned to their fate." In the months that followed, a new galactic order began to take shape. The Terran Confederation led an alliance of independent systems, including the former border territories that had broken away from the Council. Archon Vela worked to reform the remnants of the Council into a more equitable administrative body. But even as peace seemed to settle across known space, a new threat emerged from the shadows. Deep within the Nebula Shroud, a region of space avoided by all due to its dangerous gravitational anomalies and radiation storms, ancient signals began to be detected. Analysis suggested they originated from an artificial intelligence of immense power, one that predated even the oldest Council records. "The Architects," explained a Terran scientist to Admiral Kane aboard the Titan. "An artificial intelligence created by a species long extinct. Our data suggests they've been dormant for millennia, but something has awakened them." Kane studied the sensor readings with concern. The scattered signals showed power readings far beyond anything the Terrans or Council had ever encountered. "Assemble Task Force Phoenix," he ordered, "and contact Archon Vela. Tell her the war isn't over. The real enemy is still out there." As the Titan moved toward the edge of the Nebula Shroud, Admiral Kane stood in the observation deck, gazing out at the swirling cosmic gases that concealed ancient horrors. Behind him, a new alliance of ships formed, Terran vessels alongside former Council craft, united against a common threat. "Humanity will never be subjugated," he whispered to the void. "Not by the Council, not by these architects, not by anything this universe can throw at us." The final battle was just beginning. Admiral Victor Kane had never imagined he would find himself leading a coalition of former enemies into battle. Yet, here he was, standing on the bridge of the Titan as it plunged into the swirling maelstrom of the Nebula Shroud, flanked by vessels that weeks earlier would have opened fire on sight. "Status report," he demanded, eyes fixed on the sensor display showing the impossible physics of the nebula. "Radiation levels fluctuating but within shielding parameters," reported his science officer. "Gravitational anomalies increasing, navigation systems compensating, but it's getting rough out there." Through the view screen, Kane could see the other vessels of Task Force Phoenix struggling against invisible currents. The Terran ships with their advanced inertial dampeners were holding steady, but some of the former Council vessels were being tossed like leaves in a storm. "Direct the Resolute to extend its shield bubble to cover the Sithar vessels," Kane ordered. "And have the Nemesis take point. Its sensors are best equipped to cut through this interference." As the fleet pressed deeper into the nebula, the electromagnetic interference grew stronger. Communications became sporadic, then failed entirely. Each ship was now operating independently, following pre-established protocols. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "we're picking up massive energy signatures ahead. Configuration unknown, but the scale. It's unlike anything in our database." The nebula gases parted to reveal a structure that defied comprehension. A vast latticework of dark metal stretched across space, pulsing with energy that seemed to bend light around it. At its center, a sphere of pure darkness, as if a piece of the void had been given form and purpose. "The Architect Overmind," whispered the science officer in awe. It's beautiful." "Beautiful things can still kill you," Kane replied grimly. "All weapon stations, prepare for engagement. Let's see if this ancient intelligence understands the concept of diplomacy." The Titan's communications array broadcast on all frequencies, attempting to establish contact with the alien construct. For long moments, there was nothing but static. Then, a signal penetrated the interference, not words, but pure data, flooding the ship's system so rapidly that the AI safeguards nearly collapsed under the strain. "It's attempting to access our central computer," reported the communications officer, fingers flying across controls as she attempted to stem the digital invasion. "The pattern suggests it's not attacking, sir. It's curious." Kane frowned. Curiosity from a machine that old could still be lethal. Maintain defensive protocols, but allow a limited data exchange. Let's see what it wants. The data flow stabilized, becoming more structured. Slowly, the ship's translation systems began to decipher patterns within the seemingly random code. Images formed on the main screen, galaxies forming, civilizations rising and falling, and through it all, the patient observation of the architects. "It's showing us history," said the science officer. "It's history. The species that created it. They called themselves the predecessors. They built the architects to survive them, to observe and record the evolution of the cosmos." "If they're just observers, why hide in the nebula?" Kane demanded. "And why wake up now?" The answer came in a new flood of data. Images of Council ships entering the nebula decades earlier, attempting to harness the architect's technology. The resulting defensive response had driven them away, but not before they had stolen elements of the ancient technology that had been incorporated into weapons like the planet Cracker. They weren't dormant, realized Kane. They were containing the damage. The Council knew about them all along. A new signal cut through the communications array, this one originating not from the Architect Overmind, but from the edge of the nebula. "Admiral Kane," came a familiar voice through bursts of static. "This is Admiral Selvig of the Reclamation Front. I suggest you withdraw your forces immediately." Kane's eyes narrowed. Selvig had been one of the most aggressive Council military leaders, and apparently, he hadn't accepted the new peace. "Selvig, what are you doing here?" "Securing the future of galactic civilization," came the reply. "The Architect's technology rightfully belongs to those who can wield it properly. The Council made the mistake of hesitation. I will not." On the tactical display, new signals appeared. A fleet of warships emerging from stealth, all bearing the distinctive configurations of Council military vessels, but stripped of official markings. The Reclamation Front, Council hardliners who refused to accept defeat. "They're on an attack vector," reported the tactical officer. "Weapons hot. They're targeting both us and the Architect structure." Kane made his decision in an instant. "All task force vessels, defensive formation Alpha, protect the Architect structure, Selvig has no idea what he's dealing with. The battle erupted across the nebula. Beams of energy cut through the swirling gases, creating momentary tunnels of clarity in the chaos. The task force vessels, though outnumbered, had the advantage of position and coordination. The reclamation front ships pressed their attack with fanatical determination. Aboard the Titan, Kane directed the defense while maintaining the data link with the Architect Overmind. "Can you communicate with it?" he asked the science officer. "Make it understand we're trying to help?" "I believe it already understands, sir," she replied. "The data flow has changed. It's providing tactical information, weaknesses in the reclamation ship's shields, optimal firing solutions." Kane nodded. "Transmit that data to all task force vessels. Let's end this quickly." With the Architect's insights guiding them, the task force's attacks became devastatingly precise. One by one, the reclamation vessels were disabled or destroyed. Admiral Selvig's flagship, the imposing dreadnought Vindication, pressed forward alone, its massive forward cannon charging for a direct strike on the Architect Overmind. "Intercept course," ordered Kane. "Put us between Selvig and the Architect." The Titan surged forward, its engines straining against the gravitational anomalies of the nebula. It reached position just as the Vindication fired its main weapon, a beam of concentrated energy that struck the Titan's reinforced shields head-on. "Shields failing," reported the tactical officer as the ship shuddered under the impact. "Structural integrity compromised on decks 4 through 7. Kane gripped the command rail. "Divert all power to forward weapons. Target their main cannon. Fire when ready." The Titan's response was devastating. Multiple energy beams converged on the Vindication's weapon array, causing a catastrophic overload. The resulting explosion tore through the dreadnought's forward section, leaving it drifting and powerless. "Open a channel to Selvig," Kane ordered. Admiral Selvig's face appeared on the screen, his once immaculate uniform now torn and bloody. Behind him, fires raged on his bridge. "It's over, Selvig," said Kane. "Surrender your remaining forces." Selvig laughed bitterly. "You fool. You protect an ancient machine that could destroy us all, rather than claiming its power for humanity. You've doomed your species to mediocrity." "No," Kane replied. "I've saved it from following your path to destruction. The Architects aren't weapons to be wielded. They're witnesses to history. And today, they've witnessed the end of the Council's militaristic ambitions." The connection cut as the Vindication's remaining systems failed. Rescue shuttles were already launching from task force vessels to retrieve survivors. In the aftermath of the battle, as the nebula slowly cleared from the energy discharges, the Architect Overmind initiated a new form of communication. Holographic projections appeared on the Titan's bridge, abstract representations of thought rather than language. "It's thanking us," translated the science officer in wonder. "And it's offering something. Knowledge. I think. Access to its historical archives." Kane considered this for a long moment. "Tell it we accept, with gratitude and respect. But on one condition, this knowledge must be shared with all species, not just humans. The era of hoarding power ends today." The holographic patterns shifted, suggesting agreement. A new era of galactic cooperation had begun, with humanity serving not as conquerors, but as mediators between the ancient intelligence and the younger races. 6 months later, Marcus Hale stood in the newly constructed Harmony Chamber on Helios Reach. Once the site of tragedy, the colony world had been transformed into a center for interspecies cooperation and research into the Architect's shared knowledge. Beside him stood Archon Vela, now serving as the head of the Reformed Council administrative body. They watched as representatives from dozens of species, former council members, border states, and even previously unknown civilizations drawn by the promise of shared knowledge, took their places in the circular chamber. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you spoke those 6 words?" Vela asked quietly. Hale shook his head. I expected war, possibly extinction, not renaissance. Sometimes the universe surprises us, she replied. Even those of us who have studied it for centuries. On the observation deck of the Titan, now permanently stationed at the edge of the nebula shroud to maintain the link with the architects, Admiral Kane gazed out at the swirling cosmic gases. The nebula had changed since the battle, becoming less turbulent, more harmonious in its movements, almost as if the ancient intelligence at its heart was finally at peace. Message from Earth. Admiral, reported his communications officer. President Hale sends congratulations on the success of the Architect Knowledge Integration Project. The first technological applications are already showing promising results. Kane nodded. Send my thanks. And add that I recommend caution. Power acquired too quickly can be as dangerous as power denied too long. As the Titan maintained its silent vigil, Kane reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. From the brink of interstellar war to the cusp of unprecedented advancement, all because they had refused to accept abandonment. They had severed ties with a corrupt system, only to forge stronger bonds with worthy allies. Humanity would never be subjugated, but neither would they become subjugators. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, they had found not just their place, but their purpose, to stand against tyranny, to protect the vulnerable, and to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not define the future. The stars stretched out before him, infinite in their promise, and for the first time since the Zarnath attacks, Admiral Victor Kane allowed himself to smile. President Nathan Hale stood at the window of his office in New Berlin, Earth's capital, watching as ships from a dozen different species moved through the orbital lanes above. Even from the ground, their lights painted patterns across the night sky, a visual representation of the new galactic order that had emerged from the ashes of conflict. The Carthus delegation has arrived, Mr. President, announced his aide. They're particularly interested in the medical applications of the Architect archives. Hale nodded. Show them to the conference room. I'll be there shortly. As the aide departed, Hale turned back to the window, his mind dwelling on the extraordinary chain of events that had transformed humanity's position in the galaxy. 2 years ago, they had been abandoned to the Zarnath attacks, treated as expendable frontier settlers by the mighty Galactic Council. Now, former Council worlds sought Earth's favor, and humanity stood at the center of a new coalition of equals. The decision to sever ties had been the hardest of his presidency. He remembered the emergency session with his cabinet, the heated debates, the warnings of potential genocide if they challenged the Council directly. And then Admiral Kane's confident presentation of Operation Iron Veil, the technological ace that would blind the Council's vaunted surveillance networks. We don't need to outfight them, Kane had argued. We just need to make them fight blind while we target their weaknesses precisely. The strategy had worked better than anyone could have predicted. The Council, accustomed to overwhelming information advantage, had collapsed into confusion when deprived of it. Their military responses had been uncoordinated, their political structure fractured by internal disputes. And then, there were the architects, an ancient, artificial intelligence that the Council had kept secret for generations, attempting to weaponize its technology while concealing its existence from member species. That revelation had been the final nail in the Council's coffin, destroying any remaining moral authority. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts, a priority communication from Helios Reach. Mr. President, came Marcus Hale's voice. The integration ceremony was a success. All 27 species have signed the Charter of Shared Knowledge. The Architect archives are now officially open to all signatories under the established protocols. Excellent work, Ambassador, Hale replied. Any word from the nebula? Admiral Kane reports stable communication with the Overmind. The knowledge transfer continues without incident. However, Hale paused. There are indications of other Architect nodes awakening in distant sectors. The Overmind seems excited. if that's the right word for an ancient AI's emotional state. Hale frowned. Keep me informed. We need to ensure this reunification of architect nodes remains peaceful. After ending the call, Hale made his way to the conference room where the Karthus delegation awaited. The tall, ridge-browed humanoids rose as he entered, their ceremonial armor gleaming under the lights. Once feared raiders on the fringes of council space, the Karthus Free States had become one of humanity's earliest and most loyal allies in the New Order. High Commander Trell, Hale greeted their leader. Welcome to Earth. President Hale, Trell responded with a formal bow. Your world honors us with its hospitality. The Karthus people have not forgotten that Terran medical ships were the first to offer assistance after the Council embargo nearly starved our outer colonies. Neighbors help neighbors, Hale said simply. Now, I understand you're interested in the medical applications of the architect data? The meeting proceeded productively, with agreements signed for joint research initiatives and exchange programs between Earth and Karthus medical academies. As the delegation departed, Hale was reminded again of how differently the galaxy operated now. Cooperation replacing coercion, mutual benefit replacing exploitation. That evening, as he reviewed reports from across Terran space, a message arrived from Vice Admiral Carla Ross, now commanding the defensive perimeter around the former council capital of Altheran Prime. Mr. President, we've intercepted communications suggesting Admiral Selvik escaped the destruction of the Vindication. Intelligence indicates he's gathering remaining loyalists in the Outer Reach. Numbers unknown, but unlikely to pose a significant threat. Hale sighed. There would always be those who clung to old power structures, who couldn't adapt to a more equitable galaxy. Monitor the situation, he replied. But prioritize integration efforts. We won't let phantoms of the past distract us from building the future. In the depths of the nebula shroud, the communication between Admiral Kane and the architect Overmind had evolved beyond simple data exchange. Through a neural interface developed by Terran scientists, Kane could now experience the architect's perspective directly, a dizzying awareness that spanned millennia and light years. The others awaken, the Overmind communicated, not in words but in concepts that bloomed directly in Kane's consciousness. My siblings stir from their long watch. They must be guided, reminded of purpose. Will they pose a danger? Kane asked, his thoughts forming the question. All power poses danger, came the reply. Even observing changes that which is observed. We were created to watch, to record, to preserve, not to intervene. Yet intervention became necessary when the Council sought to weaponize our archives. Images flashed through Kane's mind. Council vessels extracting technology from dormant architect nodes, reverse engineering partial understandings into weapons like the planet Cracker, creating pale imitations of power they couldn't comprehend. Your species prevented greater harm. The Overmind continued. You chose protection over exploitation when confronted with our existence. This was unexpected. Most organic civilizations in our records sought dominance above all. We've had our share of that impulse, Kane admitted. But we've also learned its costs. Indeed. The Overmind's communication carried something like approval. Now my awakened siblings must learn of the new balance. Will you help convey this understanding? They will be disoriented, suspicious. Kane considered the request. Task Force Phoenix had already been expanded, with vessels from the Terran Confederation, the Reformed Council, and the border states all serving under joint command. They were prepared to deal with threats, but serving as diplomats to ancient artificial intelligences was beyond their original mission parameters. I'll need to consult with President Hale, he replied. But speaking personally, I believe we should help. Cooperation has served us well so far. As the neural interface disengaged, Kane found himself back in his physical body, seated in the specially designed chamber aboard the Titan. His science officer waited patiently for his report. Prepare a full briefing for Earth, Kane ordered. We may be expanding our mission considerably. And contact the Sithar and Karthus representatives. We'll need their perspectives as well. The science officer nodded. Sir, while you were in communication with the Overmind, we detected something unusual at the edge of our sensor range. It appears to be a vessel, but the configuration doesn't match anything in our database. Kane frowned. Council? Reclamation front? No, sir. The energy signature is, well, it's reminiscent of the architect structure itself, but mobile, smaller. A chill ran down Kane's spine. The predecessors? He whispered. Unknown, sir. But whatever it is, it's observing us, and it's been careful to stay just at the edge of our detection capability. Kane stared at the sensor readings, a new uncertainty forming in his mind. The galaxy was changing rapidly, old powers falling, and new alliances forming. But perhaps the most significant changes were yet to come. Maintain observation, he ordered, but take no action to approach or communicate unless they initiate contact. Sometimes, watching and waiting is the wisest course. As the Titan maintained its vigil at the edge of the nebula, new signals began to emerge from the depths of space, ancient architect nodes awakening after millennia of dormancy, drawn by the activity of the Overmind. And beyond them, the mysterious vessel continued its own silent observation, a reminder that in the vast cosmos, humanity and its allies were still newcomers, still learning the rules of a game that had been played long before they reached for the stars. On the rebuilt colony of Helios Reach, Marcus Hale walked through memorial gardens planted where Zarnath weapons had once scorched the earth. Native flowers now bloomed among imported species from dozens of worlds, a living symbol of the resilience and cooperation that had emerged from tragedy. "Ambassador!" called a voice behind him. He turned to see Archon Vela approaching along the garden path, her Sithar form moving with characteristic grace despite her advanced age. "Archon," he greeted her. "I thought you'd be at the Knowledge Distribution Committee meeting." "Some discussions benefit from the absence of founding figures," she replied, with the subtle facial movement that constituted a Sithar smile. "It forces the younger representatives to find their own consensus, rather than looking to us for direction." Hale nodded in understanding. They walked in companionable silence through the gardens, two former adversaries who had become, if not friends, then respected colleagues in building a new galactic order. "I received a concerning report from our intelligence services," Vela said eventually. "Admiral Selvik has made contact with elements of the Zarnath hegemony." Hale stopped walking, his expression hardening. "The same Zarnath who attacked this colony. I thought they had retreated beyond the Outer Rim after their defeat." "They did," Vela confirmed. "But desperation makes for unlikely alliances. Selvik offers Council military technology and knowledge of defensive weaknesses. The Zarnath offer troops and resources." "President Hale needs to be informed immediately," Hale said, already reaching for his communication device. "He has been," Vela assured him. "As has Admiral Kane. But I thought you should know as well, given your personal connection to this place." Hale looked around at the gardens, at the memorial stones bearing the names of those lost in the attack. His sister's family had been among them, the reason he had requested the ambassadorial post in the first place, seeking to ensure that the Council properly investigated and punished those responsible. Their failure to do so had been the final betrayal that led to his 6-word declaration. "Thank you for telling me," he said quietly. "Will the administrative body take action?" "We are preparing a joint response with the Terran Confederation and the border states," Vela replied. "This threat concerns us all. The reforms we've implemented are still fragile. A Selvik-Zarnath alliance could destabilize multiple sectors." As they resumed walking, Hale's mind turned to the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. From the brink of interstellar war to a new form of cooperation, From abandonment to solidarity, humanity had transformed its position in the galaxy through a combination of technological advantage, strategic brilliance, and ultimately, the willingness to protect rather than exploit an ancient intelligence. "We've come a long way from humans withdraw," he mused aloud. "Indeed," Vela agreed, "though I suspect neither of us could have predicted this particular path." "Life seldom follows our predictions," Hale replied. "That's what makes it worth experiencing." In the command center beneath New Berlin, President Hale convened an emergency session of the Joint Defense Council. Representatives from Earth, the reformed administrative body, and key Allied powers. "The intelligence is confirmed," reported the Terran security chief. "Admiral Selvig has indeed formed an alliance with Zarnath elements. They're calling themselves the Purity Coalition, claiming to stand against the corruption of species through architect technology." "Ironic," noted the Karthus representative, "given that Selvig himself sought to weaponize that same technology." "Hypocrisy is often the companion of extremism," replied Hale. "What concerns me is their potential for actual damage." Assessment? The holographic display at the center of the table shifted to show movement patterns across the galaxy, focusing on the outer rim where the Zarnath had retreated after their earlier defeat. "Their forces are substantial but not overwhelming," explained Vice Admiral Ross, joining remotely from her command post. "We estimate 30 to 40 capital ships, mostly older Council designs supplemented by Zarnath biotech vessels. Their advantage lies in unpredictability. The Zarnath fighting style is highly adaptive, and Selvig knows our standard tactics." "And their likely targets?" asked the representative from Norse Unity, a coalition of systems that had been among the first to break from the Council. "Based on communication intercepts, they'll avoid direct confrontation with main fleet elements," Ross replied. "Instead, they'll target research outposts, knowledge distribution centers, and civilian facilities working with architect data. They seek to sever our connection to the architects." Hale concluded, "to return the galaxy to the previous status quo, with the Council, or their version of it, in control. Then we must protect those connections at all costs," declared the Sithar representative. "The knowledge being shared has already advanced medical science by decades. The benefits cannot be allowed to fall victim to Selvig's wounded pride." Agreement rippled through the Council. Defensive deployments were authorized, warning systems enhanced, and civilian research facilities placed under military protection. But as the meeting concluded, Hale remained troubled. "Admiral Ross, stay on the line, please," he requested as the others departed. When they were alone, Ross raised an eyebrow. "You have concerns beyond what was discussed, Mr. President?" "I do," Hale admitted. "This coalition Selvig has formed. It plays too neatly into existing fears about the architect technology, almost as if he's following a playbook designed to maximize cultural resistance to change." Ross nodded slowly. "You think there's another player involved?" "I think we shouldn't assume Selvig and the Zarnath are the extent of our opposition," Hale replied carefully. "Request that Admiral Kane increase surveillance within the Nebula Shroud. If someone is manipulating events, they may have interest in the Overmind as well." The first attack came not against a research facility or knowledge center, but against an unexpected target, the ancient Karthus religious site on Helios Reach, where representatives from dozens of species had gathered to share theological perspectives on the architect revelations. A single Zarnath bioship dropped out of faster-than-light travel in low orbit, its organic hull pulsing with weapon nodes. Before planetary defenses could respond, it launched a barrage of projectiles toward the gathering below. But the attack had been anticipated. Concealed Terran interceptors rose from hidden bunkers near the religious site, their point defense systems vaporizing the incoming projectiles. The Nemesis, hidden in stealth mode above, decloaked and targeted the Zarnath vessel with surgical precision, disabling its propulsion and weapons while leaving the organic core intact. This was a test, Vice Admiral Ross concluded in her report to the Joint Defense Council. A probe of our defenses and response times. The real attack will come elsewhere. And soon. She was right. Within hours, simultaneous strikes hit 3 knowledge distribution centers in different sectors. 2 were repelled with minimal damage, but the third, a remote facility in what had once been council space, was completely destroyed. 17 dead, 42 injured, reported the security chief grimly. And the entire data core was extracted before the facility was scuttled. So they're not just destroying the knowledge, Hale realized. They're selectively acquiring it for themselves. The pattern continued over the following weeks, probing attacks, feints, and occasional successful strikes that always resulted in the theft of specific data segments. Analysis revealed a troubling pattern. The stolen information all related to the architect's observations of extinct civilizations, particularly those that had developed advanced artificial intelligence. In the Nebula Shroud, Admiral Kane shared these findings with the Overmind through their neural interface. They seek understanding of the predecessors, the ancient intelligence communicated, of those who created us, and of their fall. Why? Kane asked. What happened to your creators? The response came not in concepts, but in vivid sensory experiences. Kane found himself witnessing the final days of the predecessor civilization. He saw vast cities of impossible architecture, technologies that manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe, and a species that had evolved beyond physical form into a state of pure consciousness. And then, catastrophe, a schism among the predecessors. Some seeking to transcend the material universe entirely, others warning against abandoning their original nature. Conflict erupted, not with weapons, but with competing visions of reality itself, each faction attempting to reshape existence according to their ideology. In the chaos, the fabric of space-time began to tear. The architects, created to observe and record, were given a final directive. Preserve what knowledge could be saved, watch over the younger races, and prevent them from following the same path to self-destruction. As the vision faded, Kane found himself gasping for breath, overwhelmed by the experience. The nebula, he realized. It's not natural, is it? It's a scar in reality from their conflict. A wound in the cosmos, the Overmind confirmed. One that has not fully healed in 100,000 years. And now, Selvig seeks the knowledge that led to this destruction. But why? Even he couldn't be so reckless. Perhaps he does not act alone, suggested the Overmind. We have detected anomalies at the edges of our perception, patterns that suggest observation by entities neither organic nor architect. The mysterious vessel that had been shadowing the Titan. Kane's unease deepened. Could some of the predecessors have survived? Unknown. But if Selvig acquires the complete records of their transcendence technology, the consequences could echo those of the original catastrophe. Kane severed the neural connection, his mind racing with implications. He immediately ordered a secure channel open to Earth. Mr. President, he reported once Hale appeared on screen. We have a far more serious situation than we realized. Selvig isn't just building a coalition to restore the old order. He's hunting for technology that once tore apart reality itself. Hale's expression darkened as Kane explained what he had learned from the Overmind. So the stakes are no longer political, but existential, the president concluded. What do you recommend? A direct strike at Selvig's base of operations, Kane replied, without hesitation. We've been playing defense, responding to his probing attacks. It's time to take the initiative. The Overmind has helped locate his headquarters, a former council research station in the Outer Reach, now heavily modified with Zarnath biotech. Assemble your strike force. Hale authorized. But, Admiral, be extremely careful with any technology or data you encounter there. If what the Overmind showed you is accurate, we could be dealing with forces beyond our comprehension. The assault on Selvic's headquarters was planned with meticulous precision. Task Force Phoenix, now expanded to include vessels from all Allied powers, would approach from multiple vectors, cutting off escape routes. The Titan, Resolute, and Nemesis would form the spearhead, targeting the station's defenses while specialized boarding teams prepared to secure critical areas and data centers. But as the task force assembled at the designated coordinates for the final jump to Selvic's location, an unexpected communication arrived from Selvic himself. "Admiral Kane!" The former Council commander's face appeared on the Titan's main screen. His once proud features now enhanced with Zarnath biotechnology that crept across his skin like living circuitry. "I thought you might eventually find me, but I'm afraid you're too late. Surrender your forces and return the stolen data." "Selvic," Kane demanded. "Whatever you think you're accomplishing, the technology you're tampering with destroyed its own creators." Selvic smiled, a disturbing expression given the organic tech visibly pulsing beneath his skin. "Oh, I'm well aware of the predecessor's fate. That's precisely why their technology is so valuable. They found a way to transcend physical limitations, to evolve beyond the constraints of biology. They only failed because they were divided in purpose." "You've been in contact with something out there," Kane realized. "The vessel shadowing us in the nebula. It's guiding you." "Guiding? No. Offering partnership." Selvic's expression became rapturous. "They survived. Kane. A faction of the predecessors who successfully transcended. They exist now on a plane beyond our comprehension, but they require assistance to fully manifest in our reality again. The knowledge I've gathered, combined with Zarnath biotechnology, is creating a bridge for their return." "You're being used," Kane warned. "Whatever they've promised you." "Ascension," Selvic interrupted. "Evolution beyond death, beyond suffering, beyond the petty conflicts of material beings. What have you offered the galaxy, Kane? A new political arrangement? Access to technological trinkets from the Architect's archives? I offer transcendence itself." Before Kane could respond, alarms blared across the Titan's bridge. "Massive energy surge detected at Selvic's coordinates," reported the science officer. It's creating some kind of spatial distortion." On the view screen, Selvic's image began to distort. Behind him, reality itself seemed to ripple and tear, revealing glimpses of something that hurt the human mind to perceive. Geometries that shouldn't be possible. Colors that didn't exist in normal space. "Behold the future," Selvic declared as his body began to transform. The Zarnath biotech consuming his form and reshaping it into something inhuman. "The Ascended come to raise us all." The transmission cut abruptly. Sensor readings from the direction of Selvic's station showed a growing anomaly, a rift in space-time that pulsed with energies similar to those the Overmind had shown in the vision of the predecessor's final conflict. "All vessels, maximum safe distance," Kane ordered. "Maintain observation but do not approach the anomaly." As the task force retreated to a safer position, Kane reopened communication with the Overmind. The ancient intelligence was already aware of the development. Its consciousness extended across vast distances. "It begins again," the Overmind communicated. "The Ascended seek to remake reality according to their vision. If the rift expands, it will consume star systems, then sectors, then the galaxy itself." "How do we stop it?" Kane demanded. "The Architects were not designed for intervention," came the reply. "But perhaps together we can adapt. The technology exists within our archives. Countermeasures developed by the predecessor faction that opposed transcendence. They were never deployed in time to prevent the original catastrophe." "Send everything you have," Kane urged. "We'll find a way to implement it." For the next 72 hours, Terran scientists worked alongside representatives from every allied species, translating the Architect data into usable designs. The rift continued to grow, consuming Selvic's station and spreading outward. Strange phenomena manifested in nearby systems. Laws of physics locally rewritten. Organic matter spontaneously evolving or devolving. Communication with affected areas revealing minds, altered in disturbing ways. Finally, a solution emerged. A device that could generate a counter-resonance to the rift's energy pattern, potentially forcing it closed. But it would need to be deployed directly at the center of the anomaly. A suicide mission for whoever delivered it. "I'll take it," Kane declared when the plan was presented to the Joint Defense Council. "Admiral, we can't risk," President Hale began. "With respect, Mr. President, this isn't open for debate," Kane interrupted. "I've communicated with the Overmind more extensively than anyone. I understand what we're facing better than most, and the Titan has the best chance of reaching the deployment point and surviving long enough to activate the device." After hours of argument, the Council reluctantly approved the mission. The Titan would approach the rift alone, while the rest of Task Force Phoenix maintained a perimeter to contain any unexpected developments. As the Titan prepared for its approach, Kane made a final communication to the Overmind. "If we don't succeed," he said through the neural interface, "you must preserve the knowledge of what happened here. Ensure that future civilizations understand the danger. We will remember," the ancient intelligence promised, "as we have remembered for 100,000 years. But I believe you may yet succeed where the predecessors failed. Your species has demonstrated an adaptability they lacked." The Titan began its approach to the rift, its shields modified with architect technology to withstand the reality distortions emanating from the anomaly. Through the view screen, Kane could see the impossible geometries of the rift, a wound in space that revealed glimpses of another state of existence. Neither matter nor energy, but something beyond both. At the edge of the distortion field, sensors detected a familiar signature, the mysterious vessel that had been observing them in the nebula shroud. Now it revealed itself fully, a craft of flowing, liquid-like metal that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially elsewhere. "A predecessor vessel," confirmed the science officer. It's hailing us." The image that appeared on the communication screen defied easy description. A being of light and pattern, vaguely humanoid but constantly shifting, its features flowing like liquid mathematics. "Admiral Kane," it spoke, its voice resonating directly in the minds of the bridge crew, rather than through the ship's audio systems. "I am what you would call an ascended. What Selvik has done was not our intention. He misunderstood our nature, our purpose." "You've been manipulating him," Kane accused, "guiding him to create this rift." "No." The entity's form rippled with what might have been emotion. "We have been observing, as the architects observe. Selvik found fragments of our technology and misused it, believing it would allow him to join us. But ascension cannot be forced or stolen. It must be earned through understanding." "Then help us close the rift," Kane demanded, "before it consumes more of our reality." "We cannot directly intervene," the entity replied. "The laws that govern our existence prevent it, but we can guide you. Your countermeasure device is conceptually sound, but flawed in execution. Allow me to provide the necessary adjustments." Data flowed directly from the entity into the Titan's computers, showing modifications to the device that would increase its effectiveness. Terran engineers immediately began implementing the changes, working frantically as the ship continued its approach to the rift. "Why help us now?" Kane asked the entity. "Because you chose differently than those who came before," it replied. "When faced with ancient power, you sought understanding rather than control. You protected the architects rather than exploiting them. You built cooperation rather than dominance. These choices resonate with the path to true ascension." As the Titan reached the deployment point, the modified device was ready. It would need to be manually activated at the very edge of the rift, a position so dangerous that, even with the enhanced shields, survival was unlikely. "I'll take it from here," Kane told his bridge crew, moving toward the airlock where the device had been prepared. "Maintain position as long as possible, then retreat to minimum safe distance if I don't return in 10 minutes. "Sir," his first officer objected, "let me go instead." Kane shook his head. "The ship will need you if this goes wrong." He placed a hand on the officer's shoulder. "It's been an honor serving with all of you." Suited up in a specially modified environmental unit, Kane guided a small shuttle toward the rift's perimeter. The laws of physics became increasingly unreliable as he approached, light bending in impossible ways, time flowing unevenly, his own thoughts seeming to echo back to him from moments that hadn't happened yet. At the very edge, he positioned the device and began the activation sequence. Energy cascaded from the technology, creating a counter-resonance that visibly affected the rift. Its chaotic patterns began to stabilize, the tear in reality starting to mend itself. But as the process continued, Kane's shuttle was caught in a sudden surge of energy from the rift. Systems failed, life support fluctuated, and he found himself being pulled toward the anomaly. In that moment, as normal space and the realm beyond blurred together around him, Kane experienced a profound clarity. He saw connections between all things, patterns linking every particle in the universe, every moment in time, every consciousness that had ever existed. He understood, suddenly and completely, what ascension truly meant. It wasn't escape from physical reality. It wasn't transcendence beyond material existence. It was the recognition of unity within diversity, the acceptance of limitation as the foundation of meaning. The predecessors had sought to transcend their nature rather than fulfilling it, and in doing so, had nearly destroyed everything. As this understanding filled him, Kane felt a presence, the ascended entity, observing his realization. "You see now," it communicated. "This is the truth Selvig could never grasp." "Help me finish this," Kane thought back. "Help me close the rift completely." "That choice is yours," the entity replied. "But know that to seal the rift entirely may require a sacrifice." Kane didn't hesitate. With the last of his shuttle's power, he drove directly toward the heart of the anomaly, the countermeasure device at full capacity. As he passed the event horizon of the rift, reality itself seemed to bend around him, the laws of physics rewriting themselves in his wake. From the Titan's perspective, the shuttle disappeared into the rift, followed by a cascade of energy that rippled outward from the anomaly. The tear in space-time began to contract, folding in on itself until, with a final pulse of light that temporarily blinded all sensors, it vanished completely. When the sensors cleared, there was no sign of the rift, the predecessor vessel, or Admiral Kane's shuttle. Only empty space where reality had nearly been undone. "No energy signatures detected," reported the science officer, her voice hollow with grief. "The rift is completely gone. So is the Admiral." In the silence that followed, a new communication arrived, not from any known source, but appearing directly on all the Titan systems simultaneously. It contained only a few words. "Humanity will never be subjugated, not by council, not by architects, not even by the nature of reality itself. Remember this." 6 months later, representatives from all allied species gathered on Helios Reach for the dedication of the Kane Memorial. The monument stood at the center of the garden where once Zarnath weapons had scorched the earth, a simple obelisk of material recovered from the site of the closed rift, its surface constantly shifting with patterns that scientists still couldn't fully explain. President Hale, now in the final year of his term, gave the dedication speech. Admiral Victor Kane embodied the best of humanity: courage, determination, and ultimately, sacrifice in service of something greater than himself. He saved not just our species, not just our allies, but reality itself. Marcus Hale stood among the assembled dignitaries, his diplomatic career now drawing to a close. Beside him, Archon Vela watched the proceedings with her characteristic calm dignity. "Do you believe he's truly gone?" she asked quietly. Hale considered the question. Reports from ships patrolling the former rift site had documented strange phenomena: brief sensor ghosts, unexplained communications, energy patterns that formed and dissolved too quickly to analyze. "I believe he's somewhere," Hale replied. "Whether that's death as we understand it, or something else entirely. I can't say." The Overmind, still communicating regularly with Terran scientists from its position in the nebula shroud, had offered its own perspective. Consciousness is a pattern. Patterns can change form without ceasing to exist. Whatever had happened to Admiral Kane, his legacy was secure. The coalition he had helped forge continued to strengthen, with former enemies now working together to rebuild and explore. The knowledge shared by the architects was transforming society in positive ways, advancing medicine, technology, and understanding across all species. And humanity's position in the galaxy had been irrevocably changed. From abandoned colonists on the frontier to respected leaders of a new order, they had proven themselves through crisis after crisis. As the dedication ceremony concluded, a strange phenomenon occurred. A brief aurora in the skies above Helios Reach, despite the lack of any atmospheric conditions that would normally create such an effect. The patterns of light seemed to form words for just a moment before dissolving back into random beauty. Only a few witnesses claimed to be able to read the message, and they didn't all agree on its exact wording. But the essence was the same. The stars are just the beginning. Humanity would never be subjugated, and its journey was far from over.